So Anna, what we put you up first because I know you had sent some stuff over today to Betsy. I don't know if you want to provide some background on that information, and then we have some questions probably to ask of you, and then um, we'll take the next step.
Okay. Well, thank you for hearing me again. I appreciate it. And if I knew I was going to be on camera, I probably would have done something with my face, but here we are. Um, so the information I sent you, 'cause, I know I had sent you, I think, two articles, at one point, and then the information I sent today was what percentage of our sales is the higher nicotine levels in the nicotine pouches. That doesn't include, that just includes items from that category. It doesn't include what I would estimate to lose from ancillary sales. So if somebody used, say, a 9 milligram previously and they couldn't buy it there, but they bought milk and stuff like that, that is just what I would lose from that portion of that part of the tobacco category.
Okay. Okay. What I was hoping is probably a little bit more backup just on the value of the lost revenue. And the one reason why is that, I mean, obviously, um, if you don't sell something, it just sits there for months and months and months. Or if
Mhm.
it comes in and it's gone within a week, obviously, there's a benefit to you to have that latter situation rather than the other way. And um, the information we had received from Pari, who's the tobacco enforcement agent for the town, had noted some other places saying they're not selling 12 milligram pouches and they're going to send them back. So the question is, did they lose money, or is that a scenario that you see included in this, or is this something that again, I'm not super familiar with the retail. I guess what's the word I'm thinking of, the retail strategy of a convenience store, because I know that there are markups. Some things tend to be loss leaders. Sometimes some things tend to be more expensive for, obviously, because there's a high demand product, and that I understand. I mean, that's a
Mhm.
convenience store, but at the same time, are we? We're trying to understand. Is this how good is this number? How confident are you in that number? And is this the only? If you're just looking at the milligrams, you don't sell 12, do you?
So this would be anything above the 6 milligrams. So we have eight. So different manufacturers make different strengths. So for an example, there's one manufacturer that does 2, 4, and 8. But then there's a lot of ones that do 3 and 6, which obviously would not be affected by this because it's anything over 6. But then there are manufacturers that do 3, 6, 9, 12, and 15. The 15, I don't see much with that, but it's really the 9 and the 12 milligrams I'd be concerned with. Less of the 12, more of the 9 milligram. But I guess, and we had talked previously that my thought is that it's not the level of nicotine, because if everybody's abiding by the rules and not selling to minors, because I think that um, youth prevention is a separate issue, which we as retailers, and I'm sure I speak for the others in Norfolk, that we do whatever we can and we follow the laws, because in Massachusetts it's mandatory that you card every purchase, every customer, every time for any purchase of tobacco. So say for an example, I went in every day and got the same thing. They have to card me every time and scan my ID. It's a Massachusetts law. So as long as everybody's following that rule, I I mean, I think that's the important piece, because there are no penalties for adults that buy to mine for minors.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of two separate issues.
Yeah. No, no. I mean, the latter one I understand. I mean, that's sort of like the regulatory island, as we saw in Holyoke and Ludlow and Springfield, where one of the reasons why they kept the 9 milligrams is because they said you can just go, and the meeting minutes for that, their board of health said you can just go over the bridge and get the same thing, and no one's going to say anything. So there's always a way to work around a regulation or work within a regulation that probably
Mm-hmm.
doesn't necessarily meet the intent that some people wanted to see. At the same time, it's the I don't want to hijack your. I'm not sure if you're done, but if you have anything else to say, I did a lot of reading and a bunch of articles since then, since you came in last, and maybe you can enlighten me on some of the stuff that I read about. But if you've got anything else to add, we'll give you the floor again, and I'll see if the other members have questions too.
I think, at our last meeting back in November, which seems like a million years ago by the time you did the holidays and
Yeah.
now all this snow, my points are still there with there's no real difference in nicotine strengths compared to, it doesn't add harm if somebody uses a 9 or a 12 over a 6. It's just, you know, I guess for lack of a better analogy, whether you want a small coffee or a medium coffee. I just don't see the reason for it. The cap at a nicotine level, I do think it does help people transition from combustibles such as cigarettes. And, that's, still my point of view on that. And if anybody has any questions for me, I would be more than happy to answer them.
Yeah, so Anna, thank you for sending stuff in. I guess I don't want to speak for anyone else on the board, but I guess I'm sitting in a similar spot. The last thing I want to do is see us make a vote that's going to have an adverse impact on a local business. Now, in the same breath, I also want to ensure that we are upholding state law and that we're doing the right thing there. So the couple questions I have, you may or may not be able to answer. You may or may not want to answer them, but I completely respect that. What percent of your transactions would you say would be adversely impacted?
I would say overall total store, not counting lottery or gasoline or gift cards, within the tobacco category, because we're not talking anything that would affect anything else, other than tobacco, I would say that those items above, so we're kind of, I guess, the opposite of the other folks in town. We sell more of the higher strengths.
Hmm.
Um, so I estimated at 30% on an average for the year. Because as you know, like we're slower in the winter, busier in the summer. So sometimes we'd be a little higher, a little lower, but that's within that category, not total tobacco. So it would be
Okay.
a lesser percent. It would probably be about 15% of the
Okay.
total tobacco category.
Okay. So 15% of your sales potentially could be adversely impacted by this regulation.
Yes.
Okay. Any idea what your average ticket is, plus or minus?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
What's your average transaction amount?
Um, you know, I guess it depends. I hate to answer a question with a question.
Yep.
Would you be including gasoline and other items of the store or just tobacco transactions?
So if I have 100 transactions a
Hmm.
day, and 15% of those transactions, include the products that are under this regulation, what I would want to see is what is the average dollar amount of your transactions for the entire day. So say if you had 50 transactions for the day and your
Hmm.
total sales for the day were $1,000. Okay, so your average transaction would be $20. Any idea what the amount is?
Not per day. I didn't break it down that
Okay.
much, and I don't want to speculate.
I can respect that. I'm just trying to figure out what the impact would be. Because again, I know I personally don't want to take a vote that's going to have an adverse impact on a resident of Norfolk being able to put food on the table, period. So
Hmm.
that's all I had, Andy.
I could see your point of view, John. And we don't want to impact businesses that are trying to, um, create, earn money in town and, run a business. So, um, I do know that, the tobacco has its adverse effects, and
Mhm.
there are warnings and notices everywhere. Are there any other requirements from the state besides confirming age that they require as far as signage, or besides confirming age? Are there any other requirements?
Oh, yes. There's many, like, of course, you guys know that we have to have a local license for tobacco. There's state licenses. There are compliance checks from the FDA, the state, and I'm not sure what you do at town level, but there are requirements for signs. Um, the state of Massachusetts requires there to be about, I think it's like seven, somewhere around 7 to 9 signs related to tobacco use within the store. And, there's actually other things that we post and processes for training that we go through, in addition to the carding, of course, which is the most important thing. It's, hey, you're not 21, you can't buy this. And we send all of our people through training that is not mandatory by the state. So they use the program We Card, and we always, when we're in the stores, whether we're talking to somebody from our operations team as a district manager or someone that is, from the category management side, such as myself, we're always in the stores and we're watching transactions because you want to find out if you have an issue with an employee before then, but the state does have many requirements. I'm sure that you're aware that, for an example, in Massachusetts, you can't sell any flavored tobacco. So it's just plain flavored, well, plain, no flavor, like tobacco. So that's not like spearmint or mint. It follows the same rules as other tobacco. So I think that that is, a turnoff for the youth. Not that they should be buying it and they're not buying it in my locations.
Well, I like hearing this. So you have what do you do to control, like quality control? Do you have cameras there to be able to see what's going on? Do you insert, it seems like you have a process where you in-service your employees and educate them. Do they have some sort of
Yes,
orientation? Yes.
we do. So we have a store manager and an assistant manager. They're there. Our district manager visits. Our owner lives local, well, fairly local, in um, Shrewsbury. So different members are always in and passing through, but we do have a system called SoulLink. So for an example, any time of the day, we can just dial in remotely and see what's going on in the stores. And it has a feed from the register so that we can see, making sure that manual birth dates are not typed in, that the ID is scanned. We can pull up a specific transaction, save video recording. So we always use that, whether we're talking about tobacco transactions or other things in the store for teachable moments with training.
I'm also wondering, so this is obviously not new to you, but is it new to you in reference to operating in Norfolk? And have you done any demographic research to, like, I'm trying to kind of get an idea, like, the age range or the customer base that you most likely would attract?
They're all typically younger adult consumers. So the 21 to say 40 is what you see most. But so for an example, it doesn't pertain to the town of Norfolk, but my uncle, he's 76. He smoked since he was, God, probably about 16 or 17. I tried it years ago to get him to vape so that he would not smoke because was a heavy smoker, 3 packs a day. But now he's down to like a pack a week and he uses a nicotine pouch. So, that's a personal experience, but I don't know a lot of other ones, other than the articles I had sent in. But I do think there is a correlation between nicotine pouches and people coming off of combustibles. I mean, I'm not saying nicotine and tobacco use is good by any means. And unfortunately, there are consequences for most things we do in life, right? Like if you eat fast food every day or you drink heavily every day, I think it's just finding out there what the balance is and being a responsible retailer, whether you're selling alcohol or tobacco or both. And I think, educating people in the public, whether they're young or they're older.
Uh, uh, I don't know much about this type of tobacco. I do know about the vaping, that there is a huge risk of they're finding evidence in instances where people have developed what is called popcorn lungs, but the jury is still out on that. I've read a number of
Yeah.
articles, but I don't know anything about this one. Yeah.
I think one of the problems that, for years, everybody's just been used to the regular combustible cigarette or cigars. And now that we're seeing, newer types of tobacco, it's going to take a long time for all the studies to come through. You look at anything, right? So for the longest time, a glass of red wine was good for you every night. And then now it's bad. I'm still going with it's good for me one a night. I'm not gonna just a little. So I think it's the balance of it. I think, a lot of the nicotine pouches, in addition to the applications for the pre-market tobacco application that they have to submit to the FDA, which is a very hefty application. It's hundreds of thousands of pages by the time you're done, depending on how many items you're selling and how long it was. But I think that there's definitely a reduced harm to some of those. So a lot of the companies have gone with applying for a reduced harm from the FDA. And I think one of the things that unfortunately is the FDA is backed up with releasing approvals on applications. So I think that's unfortunately kind of tying things up because I know I'd much rather someone use a nicotine pouch than a combustible. I mean, ideally, you don't use anything, but if you got to pick one, it's kind of like, do you want to eat the big Oreo or the thin one, right? The lesser of harm.
Well, the big question is what about these new no sugar Oreos that are coming out?
I don't know. They're either going to be fabulous or terrible.
If they're anything like the pink filling ones, those are pretty nasty. So,
Let's hope they're not then.
Okay. Well, Anna, thank you very much. I continue to struggle with sort of finding a balance between financial impacts and ensuring availability. The report that you sent to us from UMass was kind of interesting, but I looked at the conclusions first, and then I read the report, and then looked at the conclusions again, and read the report again to see if it really makes sense what the conclusions really say. But it's interesting how the conclusions of that report are so qualified with, and I'll use words like limited evidence is in there, and it says there's no evidence on the use of ONPs for cessation reduction of other tobacco products or nicotine products on the effects of ONP on prevalence of tobacco use, nicotine vaping. And it's interesting how it's so carefully worded, but the bottom line is they've come up with saying we need more data. And if you looked at the basis of those reports that they reviewed, the population is 1,000 people. Mm-hmm. And from the perspective of the significance, is 1,000 representative? I mean, just straight statistics from college, that 1,000 people over 7 million in the state of Massachusetts, is that significant? I would say probably isn't, but at least they acknowledge that it's there's still work to be done. So that to me is kind of interesting. The other report, a couple other reports I looked at, is a couple from the American Cancer Society, and then as the new year rolls around, you always get bombarded by your health provider saying, "Oh, just so you know, all these things are here." And the interesting one that I got about a week ago was the discussion of nicotine products, not only use in vaping but also ONPs. And the interesting thing that they pointed out is that they're finding that the nicotine is probably not the bad thing in the ONPs. It's all the other nicotine based products that are in there. And the question is, you know, are those being regulated? And they aren't. But at the same time, you know, it's still nicotine products. But the question is does it affect everyone the same way? What I thought was interesting in the study that was done was actually some of the work was based out of Mass General, and I'm still kind of chuckling because even that report had some conflicting and contradictory stuff in there. But they said that the one thing they did notice is that the nicotine products that are in the ONPs are so significantly more pure than anything you get in the cigarette or vaping. So what does that mean? I don't know. Does it make you? Does it, you know? Do you get the nicotine feel quicker? Does it stay in your system longer? They couldn't answer that question, but they obviously recognized that was there. So it's yeah. This is not a case of okay, we'll just flip the switch and we stop. You know how they put stuff in there. So I don't. It's yeah. It's this is not an easy one. You know, I also looked at the state of Massachusetts court case when Brookline put in put in their regulations, and I don't want to speak out of turn. I don't want to say something that's wrong because I've only read the case once, and I'm still kind of scratching my head on a few things that were decided. So I don't know what the background is. I haven't been able to research some of the references there, but I do want to thank you for pointing out some of the things that we haven't done at last meeting, and I've tried to educate myself as best I can in being more of a science person and a technical person. I find it fascinating. I'll be honest with you. So I'm going to stop talking.
I mean, Andy, I guess I've gone through the regulation,
yeah,
and you know, and Anna, please correct me if I'm wrong. You know, the sticking point here appears to be Section J, nicotine content and electronic nicotine delivery systems. Am I wrong in stating that?
That's okay. I'd say that's the crux of the problem.
Okay.
Actually, could you repeat that if you don't mind?
So the challenge, so in going through the regulation, Anna, okay, the sticking point here appears to be Section J, nicotine content and electronic nicotine delivery systems. And you know, the language in here says no retailer person shall sell an electronic nicotine delivery system with nicotine content greater than 35 milligrams. That's the first line in that particular section.
That is actually already Massachusetts law. So that is not something that you can change. Well, you could reduce it, but that is when they write those, they always put that in there. Because when they say electronic nicotine, that's referring to vape and not nicotine pouches.
So G is the section really that we're discussing, oral nicotine pouches.
Okay, so what I propose we do then, Andy, is fairly simple for now. We strike Section G, so oral nicotine pouches. And Anna, I apologize and thank you for the correction. No retailer or person shall sell or distribute or cause to be sold or distributed oral nicotine pouches with a nicotine content greater than 6 milligrams per individual pouch. So we strike that from the regulation.
Okay.
And maybe what we just continue to do in the spirit of seeking to understand is continue to look at data and study it over the next year. But for now, we take a vote on the regulation less, um, section G.
I think.
Makes sense to me.
And I trust that should be viewed as something that's could be permanent. It could be temporary. It could be short lived. It could be long lived. So again, I mean, there's always that risk. We're not looking for 100% agreement with us on this, but I think that kind of solves some things. There's other stuff that's within the regulation that kind of gets reinforced. Excuse me, that we feel is necessary based on just the protection of the general public, and that's something that we can. I mean, I think you have an opportunity that you could maybe educate us a little bit more too on some of this stuff. Believe me, this is not in my wheelhouse, and believe me, it's not something I will spend nights reading a ton of stuff on, other than trying to get up to speed so I can talk somewhat intelligently, which doesn't happen that often. But anyways,
I'm reading
You and me both, my friends.
I'm reading the general range is between 1 milligram and 10 milligrams per nicotine pouch. What do you speculate the pouches that you're intending to sell,
they're selling now.
or they're selling now, would be?
So I think I had mentioned it earlier. We don't, we see a lot of the 8 and 9 and some of the 12. There is 15 milligrams, and I'm sure there's somebody that makes more out there. But one of the things as a retailer, which we do, is we really make sure that the companies that we do business with they have done their due diligence and followed the law and filed the application with the FDA. So usually, let's say if I brought in a new nicotine pouch, I do all my work and make sure that they filed the proper paperwork with the FDA. I make sure that it is on the state. I'm sure the state of Massachusetts has a list of approved tobacco products. So I make sure that they have a letter that they've submitted to the state and it's on their list that they've sent to the state that can be carried. And then, I bring it in and see how it sells. So if there's a calling for a 15 milligram, I keep it in there. My thought is, we talked about this. This is still a very new category. So of course, my preferred thing would be not to see a cap on the nicotine levels at all. But I feel like you'd want to keep the 9 and 12s for sure.
Okay.
And one of the things that I would recommend is I'd like to see you guys open to, looking at the regulation again once the FDA has approved more products that have submitted their applications. I think one of the problems in Massachusetts in general is different towns do different things. So it can be confusing. Fortunately, I've made it a point to be very versed in the towns that we operate in so that we don't have an issue. But I just wish it would be easier, like the state just made one rule across the board for everything. But sometimes everything's always got to be a little bit challenging. So.
Good luck with getting 351 towns to agree, Anna. We have a tough time in Norfolk doing that on our own. So do we make a motion?
If you would like to entertain a motion.
Yeah, I'd like to make the motion that we approve the regulation of the Norfolk Board of Health restricting the sale of tobacco products with the exception of Section G. Okay, and we strike the verbiage that sits in Section G. And Anna, to your point, we continue to study this over the next year and continue to watch what's going on out in the marketplace. And we revisit it in January of 27.
I'd like to second that motion.
Okay. So
is this roll call vote? No.
Yeah, we can do roll call vote, or no, just a voice vote.
Just one quick thing, when would you want this to become effective?
We should have a public comment period. Even though we're sort of in that now, but the fact that
say like April, maybe April 1st.
is April Fool's Day.
May 1st.
You can remember.
July 1st.
That's a good question. So February, March. Let's effective 90 days. Let's do it effective 90 days from now. So make it
1 May.
Yeah, May 1st.
May, I was thinking May too, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So the motion is that we approve the regulation of the Norfolk Board of Health restricting the sale of tobacco products with the exception of Section G, effective 1 May 2026, and we revisit the topic in January of 2027.
Okay. And
that's the motion.
We seconded, I guess.
I second that motion.
So, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? None. Okay. So, and don't disappear because.
I mean, Anna, I'll probably come down to visit you. You know, because I'd you know, I love to continue to learn about the topic, and again, we don't want to do something that's going to have an adverse impact on jobs here in Norfolk.
Well, absolutely. I'll actually be at that store on Friday the 6th because we're going to be doing the beverage reset in the morning. But Betsy has my email, so if you guys wanted to ever meet there or know anything, to an answer to a question, I'm more than happy to answer anything.
Awesome.
You know,
Thank you.
To the best of my ability, anyways. And if I don't know, I'll tell you I don't know because like. I wasn't sure about the Patriots in Denver, but it's a good thing I was wrong.
I don't think any of us have been certain about the Patriots for the last couple of years, but it's been a nice change.
For sure.
Can I give you some interesting tidbit of information? So anyways, last November, we went out to Las Vegas to see the Eagles at the Sphere and stayed at a small rinky-dink hole-in-the-wall hotel. They had a casino, and my wife decided to put $20 on the pass to go to the Super Bowl. So,
wow,
that's when they were 800 to 1.
Wow,
to even make the playoffs. So we'll see what happens.
Okay,
we'll see. Well, I'd like to thank you all again for listening to me and truly. Wanting to understand things in the town. And I appreciate your openness and I hope your snow melts fast.
Yeah. Not this week for sure. So.
True.
Okay.
Well,
and Andy, thank you so
much.
Thank you for your time and for your patience and for sending some stuff in.
And spending way too much time in those uncomfortable downstairs, John.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And have a good night, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So next we have John Glossa here for a variance hearing for 15 Ware Drive. Andy, before you get going, there's a variance preamble just to read.
John, thank you for being patient. I trust you learned a lot on this one. If you were listening in.
What's that?
I trust you learned something on this one because I.
Oh yeah. I'm not a big proponent of tobacco in any form, but it's fine. It's good.
Okay, I'm going to read a variance preamble. Let's see, a variance hearing from the Board of Health Regulations is called to order for 15 Ware Drive. It is my duty to inform you that you will have to provide the Board of Health with data to support your request for a waiver of Board of Health requirements, and that if you do not receive the waiver, it will do you manifest injustice. You will also have to show that what you intend to do is environmentally acceptable. And you have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, my name is John Glossa, Glossa Engineering, 46 East Street in East Walpole. And I am here representing Marty and Tammy Malone. Thank you, Betsy. And they are the owners of 15 Ware Drive. So if you don't know where Ware Drive is, it's right over Route 1, right over Main Street on the other side of the tracks. You take a right there, and you go down, and that's Ware Drive down there. So it kind of backs up on the opposite side of this house to the commuter rail line. Um, the Malones contacted me to because they have a cesspool to upgrade their system to a septic tank and some sort of a leach field. So we went out, did soil testing with Matt Tanis, found mostly that it's sand there and with a fairly deep water table and a 2-minute perk rate. So it's sort of ideal for a septic system, at least for the person who's paying for it, because that sort of leads to the smaller systems depending on the number of bedrooms in the house. But as you can see from the plan, it's a very small lot. It's just over 10,000 square feet. And it has, a fairly good sized house on it, a driveway, a water service, and then a wood deck. It's actually more of a patio. It's not a deck that's raised up off the ground, and it's actually at the same elevation of the ground. And the existing cesspool is sort of right behind the left rear corner of the house. The pipe coming out of the house is actually not very deep in the ground, which is good for everybody, actually. So when I looked at it, and then if you look at the lot, there really isn't any other place to put this system on this lot. If we put it in the front yard, that house is only 30 feet back from Ware Drive, from the lot line of Ware Drive, the right-of-way line. So we have to stay 20 feet from the foundation and 10 feet from the lot line. So there's no way, if we put it in the front, we would be here sort of giving you the same explanation of why we're here. But the difference is there's a water line, which is not going to allow us to make a reasonable attempt at putting a system in the front yard. And to move that water line is rather expensive. So I stuck with the rear, which is, as I said, the location of the cesspool. So we're going to come out of the pipe comes out of the left rear corner of the house. We're going to go to a septic tank. The septic tank is going to meet all the requirements of Title V. It's going to be a 2-compartment septic tank, 1,500 gallons. It's going to be 10 feet from the house foundation, which in this case we are saying actually is the bulkhead, because the bulkheads are going into the ground. So we've set it 10 feet from the bulkhead. We set it 10 feet from the left side lot line. And then behind that is the leach field, which we're using a Presby system. It allows us to make a system that's going to be at least 400 square feet. In this case, I can tell you in a second that the leach field is 468 square feet. So we're a little 68 square feet more than what's required. We're setting the leach field 10 feet off of the rear lot line, so we don't need that variance. We don't need to involve any of the neighbors. And then we have a couple of places where the leach field is too close to the building. So it's 17 feet from the bulkhead. So it's actually more than 20 feet from the sort of the main part of this house, or the original part of this house, which is you can see it. It's the left side of the house, and you can see where there was an addition added on to the right side and behind the right side of the house. So we're going to actually be 20 feet from the bulk of this house, but there was an addition. It has a basement, but it's not a full basement, but we're still treating it. We're going to be above that basement floor. So we still treat that as a foundation, and we're going to be 6.2 feet, which is essentially 6 feet, 2.5 inches away from that part of the foundation. So to offset that, we are going to put a 40 mil impervious barrier that will go from the top of the leach field elevation all the way down to the basement floor elevation, which will prohibit any sewage from migrating towards and into the house foundation. And in my experience, gravity pulls everything down, not necessarily sideways. So when you have good soil like this, it's very unlikely that any sewage would be traveling in a sideways manner anyway. That usually only happens when you have a restrictive layer. We had no restrictive layer here. We just have sand all the way down to all the way down to 100 inches. So we're fairly deep in the ground with just what really looks like beach sand, 2 minute of an inch per grid. So I feel that by putting that impervious barrier, we are sort of mitigating any unwanted result of placing the leach field where we're showing it on the plan. And if you do not give this approval, give this waiver request and approval, then we have to put it in the front yard, which, as I said, we're gonna be back asking you for the same waivers, and we're going to also ask Marty and Tammy to, relocate their water line, which would be, unusual or rather expensive and really not sort of provide any extra benefit or any extra mitigation to the placement of the leach field. So I guess with that, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, I can answer any questions that you might have.
John, Matt has given us a report, and I don't know if you were copied on it. I don't see, but the only question I have is the poly barrier. What exactly is the poly? You're just looking at like a 10 mil plastic, or are you looking at something?
It's 40 mil. It's PVC.
Okay.
It's 40 mil. It's pretty heavy duty.
Okay. The only reason why is because I got my septic tank pumped out in December, and it's been 3 years. Sorry, Betsy, since I did it last time. And I put a piece of plastic over the hatch with a tail coming out, so I could dig down 4 or 5 inches and basically follow the tail down to the tank. And that was incredibly heavy plastic, and I was surprised at how much it decomposed underground. And I don't know if that was from what, but yeah, I'm just kind of curious to see what it is. But I mean, this had some fairly significant weight to it, as well as heft to it and thickness to it. But it's I don't even remember where I got it from. I mean, it could have just been old anyways to start with. But okay, anyways.
But the 40 mil barrier it's pretty much standard operating procedure.
Okay.
We use it to mitigate what they call the breakout elevation, not in this location, but because this is a flat lot, but when you're on sloping ground. So it's something that's recognized and used often in septic system construction.
Okay. Matt, do you want to give your 2 cents while you're?
Sure. I think Mr. Glosser covered everything pretty thoroughly. Just in regards to the placement and requests that would be needed, as you're certainly aware now, it's the best possible location on the lot. We can move it further from the foundation, but then it becomes a property line issue, and we try to do everything we can to keep any variances or local requests to the property in which it lies and not affecting neighbor or abutting properties. So I think that this is the best solution. The 40 mil barriers are common for this type of request, as well as any general breakout issues that arise on other systems. So I have no issues with it. I think it's the best option for the lot.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board members?
No, I think Matt's recommendations here are If we were to approve this, that we have a suitable document recorded at the Registry of Deeds, which signifies that no garbage grinder shall be installed or used in the dwelling on the subject property. And two, a suitable document recorded at the Registry of Deeds, which signifies that an innovation and alternative energy system has been installed on the subject property, Presby Environmental Inc., Presby Environmental Septic Leaching System. So,
Get a motion.
I make the motion that we approve with these things that Matt has stipulated on his memo dated January 2026.
Okay, for 15 Ware Drive.
For 15 Ware Drive in Norfolk.
I second that as a motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, all set.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, members of the board. Thanks, Betsy, and thanks, Matt. See
All
ya.
right, good night.
Thank you.
Okay, good night.
Good night. Matt, to get you out of here, you want to do, can we just jump to, oh, we got to approve the minutes. Sorry. I was going to,
Matt?
well, figure get him out of here and then
Sure.
he can.
No worries.
Really doesn't have much to report.
Matt, do you want to, we'll jump to new business and just talk any updates you have?
Sure. I don't really have too much on updates. January is generally a pretty slow month. With the exception of, we usually start seeing new construction parks coming in, but I think I have one or two. Obviously, the foot and a half of snow is going to put a damper on that for a week or two. Other than that, 2 years ago in the middle of February, I had, I believe it was 50 Mirror Lake Ave, failed cesspool. I had issued an enforcement order at that time. The homeowner, it's some type of a rental. I'm not sure if it's rented to family, but the homeowner did get an engineer. We did go out. We did do perks. We did have a design. That design did go before the board. It had a lot of variances, but it was approved. The way Title V is written in the law, they have 2 years to come into compliance, and we're coming to that 2 years. The homeowner has been notified of a lack of pumping via phone call, email, and certified mail with absolutely zero response since, I want to say I'd have to look in the file, but last May or June, I think was the last response we had. So the next course of action would be to file in court and let it be a court matter. So at some point in February, I will be pursuing that just to keep the board aware, since the septic design did have a good number of variances. My experience is generally once something gets filed in court and the homeowner gets a notice, that usually sparks some interest in getting things rectified. So I'm hopeful that that's the case, and early this spring the homeowner will put the system in, but to be determined. So I'll keep you updated as that progresses, but I think other than that, I don't really have anything else.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Okay, carry on.
Okay, Matt, you're free to go.
Well, thank you.
Unless there's anything you want to comment on the rest of the new business, it's up to you.
I don't think so, but I'll stay on just in case I change my mind.
Okay. Well, let's review and approve the meeting minutes from December 2nd, 25. I can definitely tell you're using ChatGPT Copilot to.
You did.
Yeah.
I figured I'd give it a try.
I'll be honest with you, other than some very long-winded sentence structures, sometimes it's, yeah.
It's interesting. I figured I'd try.
So to make a motion to approve the minutes.
I second that motion. And
Okay.
anyone else want to roll this?
Yeah. Okay. So approve the meeting minutes from December 2nd, 2025. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Annual report. Body Works. I'm sorry. Body Works.
Did the work on that. John's gonna get some language to put in there regarding, I think, the quarries.
Yep.
And we'll continue this at our next meeting. Unless there's anything.
Definitely, we should try and get this in before anybody moves in, because I'm always complaining about it. Board of Health annual report. Looks like we're really busy.
Busy.
Yeah.
Quite busy. I gave it a quick draft. I don't know if anybody has anything they'd like to add. If it's due on the 10th of February.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, got a couple weeks.
Language aligns with what's been submitted in previous years.
Yeah, it's basically they Judith will send you the
yeah,
the previous year with keeping the same format.
Plug in the new numbers, add a couple of updates and about what we.
Do we need to move?
Sure, you guys,
If you want to. I mean, it's
you don't have any other edits?
No.
Okay, well, let's approve the 2025 Board of Health annual report for the town publication. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. What's next?
Update on the Pond Street solar projects.
We know why Jack's here.
Yeah. Yes, I watched it in its entirety.
And since you sit on the ZBA as well.
Yes.
The way I'm looking at this is that the project doesn't have to be denied. It has to be conditioned to the hilt. That's the way I'm looking at it, because I keep looking at this report from on the off gassing, and then something didn't quite sit right, and other than the off gases, that they have nothing on particulate matter coming off that. There's no lithium. I actually found a Department of Energy report on a bunch of batteries they caused to fail out in California. There's lithium, there's magnesium or manganese, depending upon which report you do. So I think that's probably either typo or misunderstanding what it is. There's iron, there's cobalt, and there's various other heavy metals, usually sometimes zinc, sometimes lead, depends upon who the manufacturer is. That's nowhere to be found in that report. And the dispersion of those are much different than gases. So that's, from the perspective of the Board of Health, the exposure to that, while they're saying the carbon monoxide, which was looked at, which is less than 10% of the total off gassing, it just doesn't make sense that that's the one they're looking at, because the other stuff, and I did talk to the fire chief about the other gases. He goes, well, yeah, they're flammables, and they have their meters on, they can tell it's there. And one report that I saw that looked at old nickel metal hydride based batteries that actually had hydrogen sulfide. And if hydrogen sulfide is one of those wonderful compounds that, when you smell it and then you don't smell it, that's when you get in trouble, because it desensitizes your nose. And literally you have a smell threshold of between 1 and 2 parts per million, and basically a lethal concentration is in the 10 to 15 range if you are exposed to it long enough. And that's something that really it's frustrating, because it seems like they kind of cherry picked a little bit of the stuff. So I mean, I sent Rich and Betsy sort of a very quick and dirty assessment of that. The one thing that they didn't even address in this report was that, and I use methane. Methane has actually a reportable quantity under the mass contingency plan, which is 10 pounds or 2.064 gallons just say 2 gallons to make it easier. When you look at the percentages and the volumes that they're saying are being discharged, if you took 10% of that discharge, you're still looking at close to 14 pounds of methane. So you have an exceedance of the MCP. That again is in violation of the contract because they talk about release. So there's that
there's like 3 different issues.
Yeah.
I have.
Yeah.
The simplest and the easiest to understand. Is this on?
No.
It's okay.
Yep.
The simplest and easiest to understand is the legal aspect.
Yeah.
Like you just brought up.
Yeah.
We have a contract that we said, and that the contract is the lease agreement. It says the developer will build A. The developer decided he wanted to build B. So what he's building and what we have in the agreement to lease the land are 2 different things.
Yeah.
And I asked the town council about this. I said, it's very specific. Whether it's right or not is immaterial. The contract says that you will not emit any material, hazardous material, into the groundwater, the ground, soil, or the air on the lease site or nearby.
Yeah.
Now, the developer says, well, it's not on the lease site. That's purposely why we put the battery box on our land.
nearby.
It says nearby.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. So we have a contract that is a direct violation to what is being built. That's number one. Number 2, there's a lot of questions that people have that ask me, and I don't know all the answers, but I don't even know some of the answers. But what you talked about was the gases, right? They first said carbon monoxide is what we're going to focus on. And it's lighter than air, that it's going to go straight up 25 feet. And since most people are 6 feet or less, we're not going to be bothered by it. Now, first of all, that's assuming there's no wind. Number 2, the molecular weight of air is 28. The molecular weight of carbon monoxide is 28. They're going to mix. And one's not significantly lighter than the other. So that's an error right there.
Yeah.
Then, as you mentioned, you read the same thing I did. 40% of the gases, 30% is methane, 10% is hydrogen, and then there's a mix of propane, acetylene, the burning stuff in torches, and all that stuff which they ignore. And then the other question is they talked about putting the water, if there's an emergency, the chief said, we're going to go there, we're going to wait for the emergency team from NextGrid to get there. My guys aren't going to touch this. We're not going to open the doors. We're not going to get inside. We're going to wait until you guys get here. And then one of the methods of taking care of if there's a fire is to flood it with water. Now, I understand the containers are sealed to water. So they fill up this container with water without knowing if any of the lithium is exposed. We don't know if the battery box has been breached or if there's lithium there, and yet the sprinklers are up at the top in the picture, and it's going to spray water down on it. Well, one of the worst things you do is spray water on raw lithium. And suppose the box fills up with water. All right. And they do that, it's sealed so you don't have the effluent, the runoff going into the ground. Well, how do you get the water out? You got to pump the water out, right? And they show in the details they provide, the pictures, it's a butterfly valve. What if the water gets above the stage of the butterfly valve? And the butterfly valve will open under certain conditions, whether there's overpressure, whether there's toxic gas, whether there's smoke. So there's a lot of questions about how this thing's going to work.
Yeah.
And, I think the community's got a lot of questions about how this thing's all going to play together. And they changed the footprint. And, I was told by the select board, go to the planning board, they'll have all the answers. The planning board goes, don't ask us. We don't have any battery experts on this. We don't know what they're talking about. You got to go to the building department. They're the ones that permitted it. So I go to the building department and said, hey, all we did was we gave an electrical permit that says that they're following the electrical codes, the NEC and the other codes that are applicable. We don't know anything about safety. All right. And then I went to the zoning board of appeals, right? You were there.
Yes.
And I said in the zoning board of appeals, you have as a condition of your special permit granting, your special permit grant approval, that one of the first conditions is that it applies or is in support of the lease agreement, the contract. That was a condition of your site approval for the zoning ZBA. I said, it doesn't agree with it. How could you have done that? And how can you do it in the future? And the town council was there and he said to David, Expert, is that his name? Expert?
Yes. Excellent.
He said, Dave, we're okay, we're fine. And so then David says, okay, we're fine. Next question. Well, I'd like to know why we're fine if it's in writing. So I pointed to town council afterwards and I said to him, why is this fine? And he said, Jack, you got to understand, you can't read legal documents literally. That's not how it works. You got to interpret them. It's what they mean, not what they say. I said, you're kidding me, right? Because I was in military contracting and you better spell out exactly what it said. And he says, no, we're gonna interpret that the way we want. So I don't agree with that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't agree with that. You got a document, it's wrong. At least one board and two boards have accepted or approved it based on that contract. And by the way, that's not the only thing that's wrong in that contract, but that's the glaring one. So the public is trying to, the residents of the town are trying to ask these questions and they're getting a runaround. They're getting a runaround. And it's pretty sad. I think they're getting very, very frustrated because we have failed leadership. We have a problem with people who want to take I mean, if it was me, and we saw this, the OIG report, everybody knows about now, the Office of Inspector General came out with this report in June of 2025 saying, you guys messed up the procurement of this several different ways. They do not want to talk about it. Nobody wants to talk about it. They will not answer questions about that. I had items put on the agenda at the select board meeting, and I was told, if you put it on the select board agenda, they'll discuss it. When we got to that, they wouldn't take any questions. And I've said before, it's okay to make mistakes, but if you don't learn from them, and if you're not acknowledging, you can't move forward. And there's always going to be questions. It's okay to make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. They don't want to talk about this, so I don't know how it gets fixed if you don't know what went wrong. And it was a different planning board. I mean, it was a different select board back then, but not totally different. There was one person that was still on it that's on it today. So there's a whole host of problems with this. And I mean, I agree with you. I think this can be made safe, and I think it's okay. But we gotta not sweep things under the rug and figure out what we're getting. And I read the TUV report like you did, and I looked at it and I was just shaking my head because they're just talking about carbon monoxide. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
The PUM report is on the planning board. I don't know if you saw it or if you looked at it.
Yeah, I mean, Jack, I listened to or I watched the meeting on the 13th, and I appreciate your call outs on paragraph 2.8.2. The tenant shall not discharge any material into ground, air, etc. And then I think it was section 3.6.1. And all these batteries emit, and that's where I believe methane was at least referenced.
Yeah.
So it's clear that the audio and the video just doesn't match here. There were a couple other concerns that I had that I would layer in here. It was said at the very beginning that a technical review hasn't been completed. And because it's new technology, there's no real code connected to it as of today. You then go a little bit deeper, and they're relying really heavily on liquid cooling for the battery systems. Okay, is the liquid cooling systems that they're using, are they UL approved? Are the pumps within these liquid cooling systems, are they proven to be able to work 24/7, 365, however many years they need to work? We don't know that. And I say this as someone who spent 2 years working in liquid cooling.
Yeah, I think they're heat pumps. Yeah,
they're heat pumps.
And are you confident, Andy, that they were going to be able to, that A, they're UL approved?
Well, what I didn't see is I don't see any redundancy built into the system, and it may be there. For example, if one thing fails, what happens then?
Yeah.
Is the other one size, the second one size enough?
All they've said is if the cooling fails, we'll remotely shut it down. In other words, if there's a failure in the HVAC or the cooling system, we will shut it down. It may be too late by then.
Well, that yeah. I need to find this email.
So how quickly can this thing warm up? Because does it warm up to a point and then it shuts down because they've discovered the liquid cooling system isn't working?
Good questions.
Well, you have to go to BYD, who is the company that's making these boxes, who's making the batteries. They have everything there, but they don't really give you a lot of detail because some of it's proprietary. Some of it is actually tailored towards the climate you're in. For example, in Florida, you're going to have a lot more heavier load for cooling. The lithium batteries like to be 65 to 75 degrees to work properly and basically operate safely. The biggest problem I've seen is that you have swings where the system is either undersized or oversized, and all of a sudden they get too cold or they get too hot and they can't cool them down quick enough, and then you're sort of fighting this balancing act. And I don't know if that how they adjust that there. I mean, they don't give you the SCADA, they don't give you anything what's really monitoring, and that's something that does that get conditioned by the zoning board of appeals or the planning board?
No, I was there at that meeting, and there was the reference to the town council.
Yeah,
and
this is we're fine, we're okay.
Yeah,
that was it. End of discussion.
Yeah,
it's like
excuse me. John, let me send you some pictures or a picture of a battery project. The last one I did down in Freetown, which is basically it's a 12 megawatt field and it's 2 trailers that are full of batteries. Best way to describe it is that the system at the time it was put in was unique because it's supposed to put out 5 megawatt hours every day, every minute of the day, forever. That's until it finally dies. The field, when you look at it, part of the field charges the batteries only. The rest of it discharges or exports power to the grid. And that's what it does. And then there's the smaller unit, which is sort of the shoulder months where you need to supplement some batteries with the shorter sunlight during the wintertime, or like we have right now where the snow may be covering the panels and they're not producing. That particular one, to give you an idea, the size of the cooling and heating systems that are in there are probably, if you went to the door, they're this big. Mm-hmm. They're massive. Mm-hmm. And when you look at them, there's 4 condensers, and not all of them run at the same time. They rotate them through because they do need maintenance. And that's something that this system, I can't tell. Everything may be self-contained within those boxes that they're going to bolt together. I don't know. And that's. But
you said also that this installation is the first of its kind in Massachusetts.
This generation, I have to admit, I was talking with one of my former coworkers, and I said, "Do you know, out in Westfield, there's 4 solar fields that are right next to each other, and we used to do inspections on 2 of them because they're on the landfill. And there's another one that's next door that was put in after those were in, but that's a battery system too." And they said, "That's a BYD," and he goes, I said, "But that was what, 10 years ago?" He goes, "Yeah." But he says, you look at them and they've taken a beating because that was the first one that they know from Massachusetts. But this particular generation that we're looking at, this would be the first one in Massachusetts as far as we can tell.
It's some in California and some in
Texas. Yeah.
None in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
So this is a flip of the coin.
Yeah. So, again, you're looking at track record, and, I'd like to say the proponent in me says, a 1 to 2% failure rate of these batteries will occur. Mm-hmm. The question is, could something else happen if the batteries aren't failing, but the heating system's failing? And so that's where the redundancy comes in.
Well, the thing is too, even if it's got a low failure rate, you can have something with a high failure rate, a low consequence when it fails.
Yeah.
We got something with a low failure rate, but a very high consideration of something that fails.
Yeah.
It could be a catastrophic failure, or it could be a large impact, even though it's going to go favorably. The
Yeah.
other thing that's in that lease document, I forget what paragraph it is, John, but if you read it, there's one in there that says, if there's an explosion or a fire or anything that causes the installation to be unusable, either party, that is the town of Norfolk or NextGrid, can cancel the agreement. Okay, they can cancel the agreement.
I don't know.
So if NextGrid says,
Well-
hey, it's not usable, it's not worth fixing, we can't do it, they can terminate the lease.
And they can just walk away from the
You get
mess
to
that they've
fix it.
created.
No, well, no, well, no.
Nothing in there about who's gonna pay to fix
Well,
it.
there's a removal bond that has to be posted with the town.
Yes, it is.
That's
Yeah.
Isn't that a decommissioning bond though?
Yeah, but at some point where if it's not usable, then it
Is
flips
that
it.
enough to cover it?
Well, that's the comment I'd make to Rich is that needs to be looked at every year.
Because we're only charging, we only require them to post $1 million bond to, as an insurance bond, to clean up if there was a hazard there where, something went wrong and we have to clean up the soil. That's nothing. I got $1 million. Most people in here have $1 million insurance policy on their home.
Yeah.
So $1 million to clean up a waste site.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of it. You have to look at the amount.
Yeah, there's different ways to look at this, but I think we're all looking at the same way. But I mean, as I said before, I think I think the project can get conditioned to the point where everybody should be happy, and it may not make NextGrid happy, but the choices are: do they get delayed more and more and more?
It's going to cost them more.
It's going to cost them more, yeah.
They're
So
not going to like it.
yeah, but again, I still don't fully understand why they haven't asked for an increase to the inverter capacity output. To me, that's a question. I think I understand maybe what they're doing, but it's pure speculation because you're basically doubling the size of the PV panels, and if you assume, let's just say, six megawatts, you're actually gonna get 80% of that to convert to AC, so that's 4.2, like 16. Like 12 minus, so 4.8 megawatts AC, but the battery storage is only 3. So how the numbers don't quite work out right. But there may be a reason for that. Maybe there's assuming some things. Maybe they're assuming that they'll have to use they're going to use the power on site to run their equipment because of the units the cooling units I've seen. I mean, you're talking 200-ton AC units, which are huge. These batteries are, my small lithium battery in the drone that I use, when I take it out on a summer day, you can barely hold it. It's that hot. Yeah.
My phone sometimes gets hot.
Yeah.
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 So do you think we should have like a public hearing or a call NextGrid in to answer some of these myriad of questions we have?
Isn't that what the public hearing process is for?
Yeah, but I think, but you're getting, you're well, I think that
I say we don't know. We don't have any battery experts on here. We're not technical. We have no idea. Here's what I don't understand. They say we don't have any purview over the batteries. So NextGrid is increasing the size of the solar panels and the batteries. So why does this planning board have to approve it if they don't have any purview over it? We know.
It's the fine blinder section that I think the planning board is looking at is that they're looking at a change in impervious area. You're looking at a change in runoff. You're looking at a larger change than you're not changing the total work area. You're changing what's in that work area. And that's something that I understand why they're thinking that they should see it, and they probably should see it. But the fact that there's so many other things that are getting dragged along that were bad from the first part, that I think it's just becoming very difficult to try and separate the two. I mentioned to Rich in one of the emails, I think I copied you on too, is that, maybe the town should get a separate consultant to look at this from not only, I know the fire chief is, and I've been sending him names to do the third party review, but the bottom line is they gotta,
that's short money. It really is short money.
Yeah, it is.
Compared to what the potential for failure is.
Yeah.
I mean,
the bad thing though is that trying to find somebody who will do work, because I know 3 of the people I contacted that would do just the third party review for the fire chief, they all work for Next Grid, or they have work coming up with Next Grid, and they don't want to do that. They don't. I mean, it's a conflict of interest. Yeah. So,
I like that idea. If we could get a third party.
Yeah.
It may take some time, like you said, to find somebody. I know the chief is having trouble finding somebody.
Yeah, he is. I mean, I gave him a name, but then I realized that the same company this guy works for was that Jensen Hughes that did the dispersion model. They work in different offices, so hopefully maybe they don't talk. I don't know. I don't know.
For the pool model?
Yeah, the pool model. Yeah. But this guy came highly recommended because he's done work before for other companies, and basically brought him as a third party to review stuff, work for towns, and
could we get? Do you think we could get Next Grid to pay for that third party?
Yeah, I mean, any board has the ability to request a consultant come in, and the developer pays for it. Yeah.
I think that's an excellent.
Yeah.
You did mention, I just wanted to interrupt anybody during the zoning board meeting. I mean, regarding our, like, the resources in case something were to happen, who's responsible? Is there like an emergency plan? I never got a chance to look at
No, there's no overall single person or group that's looking at the whole big picture. It's what we used to call silo management. Everybody's got a silo, and nobody's looking at the overall silos. They're all concerned with their own silo, right?
Yeah.
So, there is no overall. I've heard there's a emergency management person that we just found out about.
Yeah, Ed Nolan. Yeah.
What's his name?
Ed Nolan.
Ed Nolan?
Yeah.
But he works part-time. He only works 20 hours a week.
No. He doesn't work 20 hours a week here.
Doesn't?
He's available 20 hours a week. Sorry, that's
He's
available to work 20 hours a week.
He's available to work.
Because when the dam was failing over the prison, I talked with him and I said, what's how often can we call you if we have a real serious problem? He goes, well, I'm available pretty much 24 hours a day, but he goes, realistically, if you need something scheduled, I mean, my time is limited. And he said, up to 20 hours a week is what he could commit to.
I think his stipend is $700 a year. So
yeah, well,
I think
that's not a real big incentive.
That's not 20 hours a week.
Yeah.
It's not. No, it's not.
But he's a volunteer.
Yeah. But again, he's
$700 a year. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a volunteer.
But again, he
not even a day.
But that was what he would expect is that a lot of stuff gets given to him that he can assist with. I don't think he doesn't have the resources. He doesn't have the time. Doesn't have any support.
Right. He's helped the Board of Health when we drafted, emergency dispensing site plans and shelter plans and things like that.
Yep. Yeah.
So what are our options to influence? Because I mean, I've been following it, and there's concerns.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm a supporter of solar. I think the project is a good project, but there are things that should be keeping people up at night until they get hammered out. And that's, I mean, I've sweated through stuff like this. Some of the stuff has been, simple. Some of the stuff is like, you're agonizing over 6 months later, and, you got to do a redesign because something was found, and people try to do the best they can, but sometimes you hit the stone wall and you got to start all over again. And I'm most frustrated sometimes with the planning board, where they seem to be very selective. But I'm not saying that I'm criticizing them, but I'm pointing out things that I'm seeing. It's like, I've worked with other planning boards on projects like this, and you heard me say it, they take the lead on this stuff, because whether it's really under their purview, they understand that that's there. I don't see that dynamic with our planning board, as they seem to be very blinders on. We're going to deal with my compartment, what's in my wheelhouse, and that's it.
To defend the planning board a little bit, I don't work. I'm not on the board, but we've had one public hearing, so make sure you check with me. I have a feeling that the public hearing on the 10th will probably get continued. So, but check with me before you come that night.
The 10th of
February.
February. Okay. Yeah, and
I'm confident that people are trying to work on getting these questions answered and concerns.
Yeah.
So.
Well,
it'll work its way out. So.
Yeah, I hope so. And we should take our time. I just don't.
Right.
It rubs me the wrong way when I go in front of the board and they say, well, it's not my job. That's not my job.
Right.
Okay.
You know,
then who's-
they hadn't seen the project. They saw the project the same time you saw the project.
Right, but I'm saying, I think a proper response would be, hey, it's not our job, that's not our thing, but you know what? We'll tell you whose job it is. We'll find out, because you need to have these questions answered.
Have folks looked at, and I know folks asked the question, where else has this been done? And I believe the response we got was, we'll get back to you on that. And then someone brought up, if I recall correctly, Warwick, New York. And my understanding in doing a little bit of research was there was some type of ruling that came out of Warwick, New York, saying we're no longer going to, or we're going to temporarily cease doing this.
Moratorium. Yeah, there's been a moratorium in a bunch of states. It says we're not going to use batteries, lithium ion or lithium ion hydride. They put a moratorium on it. That was in New York, where they had 3 fires, right, on the same site.
Yeah.
So we're just going to do a moratorium on this stuff.
Yeah, because that's what I read. So I guess my question is, why are we allowing ourselves to be jerked around, versus having someone take a hard position? And I apologize if the language is offensive. It's not my intent, but
no, I mean, I think part of it is that as the developer, they are advocating for their project. As a consultant working for a developer, you advocate for the project, but time as well as past experience should automatically say, okay, these are boxes that are going to get checked and they are red flags too. And those have to get looked at. I don't think we're there yet where they're not realizing that the red flags have to be addressed. I mean, if you look at what's out at 109 towards Medway, that's got the big Fortress, the big Tesla battery storage. Have you been out there? Oh, have you seen it? Oh, you should go. It's
on 109.
It's on 109. You know where the 45 restaurant is?
Mm-hmm.
At where the fire station is, just go past on the left hand side. There used to be an auto body repair shop. It's past that. It's past that. Go towards 495. If you go there, you'll see it. It's huge walls. What it is it's a 250 megawatt battery storage facility. What they did is they put a shaft down with a turbine, where the Algonquin gas line is. It spins a turbine, makes energy, fills the batteries up. It's in the batteries, you're basically getting free energy to a certain degree because all you're using is the energy within the moving gas to turn it. I driven by a couple of times. I watched when they did the shaft, and the piece of equipment they had must have been 150 feet tall on a crane and put the shaft. Absolutely unbelievable. But when you go there, when you're driving away from 495 and where the fence, it's just a security fence, not the sound barrier. I mean, you can physically see the Tesla boxes. You can see all the DC and AC switchgear all there. It's absolutely unbelievable. But yeah, that's 250 megawatts, and that's still not the biggest one. And there's a bigger one out in the Springfield area.
Yeah, and Andy, if you compare that to what we have down here,
oh, this is a drop in the bucket.
Yeah,
this is much smaller.
Yeah. This is you're probably looking at something that's probably at twice the size in this room here versus that's probably 8 acres.
So I guess I go back to my initial question: what are our options to influence?
I mean, maybe I don't know. Maybe simply having a citizens meeting, invite the planning board might be the best way to air. And it's like, hey, if you get started at 7 o'clock, plan to stay till 10:30. It's going to be a long night.
Yeah. And the other thing that worries me a little bit is that there's been no environmental analysis done by the DEP, NEPA, so Mass Environmental Protection Agency, or the EPA. When they were going to put a sludge site here, the EPA, the NEPA, DEP were all over this, right? It took them 2 years to do the study.
Yeah.
And the other thing is disturbing is that the state of Massachusetts is worried about this too, because this year, by the end of this year, there are new regulations that are going in. It's the 2,000 and 3,000 foot rule. 2,000 feet, this kind of hazardous waste cannot be within 2,000 feet of residential area, or 3,000 feet within a wetlands or environmentally sensitive area. And we're certainly within that. area, right?
Yeah.
So I talked to the DPU and they asked me to write them an email, and I did. And they're gonna run it up the chain and see if DEP or NEPA should get involved and do some kind of study on the impact to the environment.
Yeah. John, if this was simply straight a solar project where, you know, they're exporting to the grid, there's it's a different story. You know, my primary issue with the original plans is that the call outs and what the boxes were changed from revision to revision, and the zoning board of appeals, when they did their first review, the square that's called out as a battery storage on the planning board was basically a blank box for the zoning board of
It's just
appeals.
a concrete pad.
It's just a concrete pad, yeah.
3 concrete pads.
Yeah, it wasn't called out. So the question is, you know, was that intentional? But when you look at the revisions and the dates, everything is the same. So what happened? What happened? You know, I know glitches happen with AutoCAD and Revit and SolidWorks and all that stuff, but this is something that,
And the town, when this was brought to the town meeting, the approval of the lease, there's never any mention of battery storage. It was all solar field. So people thought it's going to be like the landfill, just going to have a bunch of solar panels there.
Yeah.
I said, well, you know, how can you argue with that? That's a good deal. So really, you know, it got both of them.
Yeah, and I mean, a solar field and battery storage are two entirely different things.
well, the amount of time and effort it takes to maintain one of those systems, believe me, it's a lot of time and effort. And you know, one of the concerns I had, and I mentioned this to Rich as well, is, you know, they had a budget for inspections over the course of the year, annual inspections of $39,000. You're going to eat that up. You could eat that up in 2 weeks, let alone a year. And that's something that I just think that's way underestimated. And I told him about a $500,000 repair out in Western Mass that it was due to erosion, and it was directly from the solar field being built on a slope. So, anyways,
Yeah. Okay. So are we going to encourage some type of public meeting? I got to pay my taxes tomorrow. I'm going to stop in and see Rich, and I'll see if we can sort of figure out what to do. But I think having some sort of public forum is probably the way to start, and just to educate people to realize the project is not a bad project, but the way it's going, it's making it very difficult to everybody like it. And that's kind of I'm trying to be technically as well as personable, as well as trying to be as optimistic as I can. But again, I mean, we're running into it's problems all across the board that are, and it has to do with either bad information, no information, or people basically throwing caution to the wind, or just basically saying, well, this is what we're going to do. And it's like, well, but there's people that should know better.
I also think, John, to your point too, is that my opinion is too that we have to rewrite or renegotiate that contract.
Mhm.
It's no longer relevant.
Mhm.
If they're going to build it, what's the way they're saying they're building it, and the plans show they're building it, the contract is not relevant to me.
Yeah. So.
I mean, if the residents voted on a solar field and they're getting battery storage, two different.
And I think that's a
vote on a solar field though.
I do have a question.
You voted to lease the land.
So we-
for a solar field.
Betsy, you should probably look at the meeting minutes that Carol has. It
I
says
put a video of the town meeting, and the people thought they were voting on a solar field, leasing the land for a solar field,
yeah, but
not a solar field and a battery storage.
yeah, but I looked at the town meeting minutes, and it clearly says that it's to be leased for to put a solar field in. So that part was there, and I know people said no, we're just leasing the land. It's like that wasn't my recollection, because I remember people talking about.
I looked at the video of the initial planning board meeting there. Daniel Serber, is that his name?
Yeah.
Serber?
Yeah.
He presented it, and he said, we're going to build a solar field here with an allied battery and inverters. And I don't think anybody understood what that meant, because there was one question about that, and there were like 4 or 5 follow-up public hearings. And I looked at those videos, and there wasn't one question about that.
No, I agree with you.
Is there any benefit for the town? I didn't look at the contract. Benefit for the town to have like a discount on,
Yeah, they're giving us a discount if we want to buy it. If we want to go in, 1.5 cents a kilowatt hour. That's it. Now Massachusetts, Eversource is charging me 40 cents a kilowatt, right? They're going to give us 1.5 cents. So I think the town said, keep it.
We're getting a good amount from the landfill, but I mean, in comparison,
Is that the supply rate or?
That's everything. The 40 cents a kilowatt hour Eversource is charging is the generation rate, the fees,
the taxes,
all that other stuff.
Now, when you say the town, you mean the town, like the town,
Town of Norfolk, not
the people.
not the people. And that's another reason for renegotiation. The town could get a lot more money. It's only getting 40 grand a year for the lease of that land. And the policies they have, the decommissioning numbers and the insurances, that should be up.
I thought it was more than that. You're saying it's
40K a year. They got 200K for not having to build the road. I looked up what a road costs. It's 50 foot wide and a half a mile long. To build that with an asphalt road is anywhere from 300K to 1.5 million.
Mm-hmm.
Next Grid said, we'll give you 200K instead of building.
Mm-hmm.
We could do a lot better for the town.
So basically $3,300 a month.
For the lease?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now there's a 3% rider every year. It goes up 3% every year. But
$90.
Yeah, not a lot.
Jack, I'd love to spend talking more time about this, but we got a few more topics, and I'd like to get home before 9 o'clock because I've been up since 4.
Sure.
So I appreciate it. Thank you for your time and effort and all that, and I'm quite sure we'll be talking.
Jack.
Thank you for listening.
Please be careful.
No, the roads were a little. Cleveland was very slick. I don't know. Yeah.
So is Medway.
Oh, it's only 16 out.
Yeah.
It's cold.
So. 7 Sherwood Drive permanent solution for the OHI report. Looks like they had a overfill or a loss of oil from between 1,500 gallons from a tank on the back of a truck.
When did that happen? Recently?
That happened over a year ago. Yeah, it took them a year to get it, and that's within the cleanup schedule within the time.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's it. The only thing I picked up is that they never notified. There should be within the report there should be some sort of notification letter to the Board of Health or email saying that they are performing response actions and there's a health and safety plan has been prepared, and they should offer where that goes. And I'm just saying that as it used to be an LSP.
Yeah, but I don't ever recall getting any kind of
notification. What'll happen is if there's an audit by DEP, they'll pick that up and then probably tell them you guys screwed up. But it is what it is. I'm not too worried about it because the levels, what they found. I mean, it was a surface spill and they pretty much got everything. Yeah. I mean, they took out 100 cubic yards of soil. So it really wasn't. It's not honestly. If there's something simple, this probably still cost them probably $300,000 to clean up. But it is what it is. 111 Dedham Street, Southwood Hospital. The 3,000-page report.
2 copies in my office.
Yeah. If you want to read it, I've gone through the first volume once. I'm going through it a second time, flagging things that are not complete. So those are due questions. On February 2nd, there's going to be a meeting with the Public Involvement Plan group.
I was going to say, I just got the notification in the mail today.
Yeah.
So,
so
I think that's by Zoom, right?
There's a Zoom call. And Betsy, I was wondering if what we could do is could we do it here and have everybody here and do a Zoom call?
Is that Monday?
What day is that?
It's a Monday.
What time is it called?
6.
6, yeah.
Were they holding that meeting in Norwood? Were they holding?
No,
it's by Zoom.
It's by Zoom. It's by Zoom. Yeah, they're GFI will be in Dedham probably or in Boston.
Okay, so okay.
I think I can do it.
So let me reach out to Karen Riley because she's on the public involvement plan site and see if that's something that we can do.
I scanned the notice this afternoon. I can email it to you guys if you want the Zoom information.
And what I mean, we can reach out to Bill Buckley too and let him know it's like, look, there's a lot of people interested, or there may be no people, but set up ground rules saying, look, you can't just simply ask questions, the same questions and all that stuff, because this is only the phase two. A lot of questions still have to be answered. There are a lot of things that are raised in this report that have to be done in the phase three and phase four, but I don't want to waste their time by somebody asking the same question over and over again. It's like, well, so, but that's something that, I think the group, the PIP group that, because I've sat in a couple of the meetings and Zoom calls they've had, they're asking very specific pointed questions, and they already know the answers or know where the answer is going to go. So you're kind of sort of getting somebody on record more than anything else. But it's, yeah, I mean, 3,000 pages, most of it's analytical data, but the two things I picked up in the report, just so you know, is the radium. They didn't do any assessment of the collection system or the wastewater treatment plant. They just did assessment of the area it's called AOC 3, which is part of the bank system, the stream bank system there, and then also the filter beds for the plant. That's the only places they looked. They haven't looked anyplace else. And the other thing too is they did a bunch of test pits looking for tanks around the old buildings. And speaking from experience, that's not enough. That's not when I worked for the prison system. I was assured when I started in '99 they had just done a full tank removal for a bunch of all the facilities in '97, and some of the work I picked up was to close those sites out. And I was assured, yeah, we got all the tanks out, but we have these three that will have to come out eventually. And I knew where they were. Within 2 months, I had gone out to each of them, looked at them. They were still in use, and they were going to take them out of service because the building was going to be demolished or whatever. Well, I took out 9. I found 9 other ones.
Oh, wow.
That they said. And if I could tell, there was one up in Concord that was 6,500 gallons, which is probably half the size of this room. That was this far away from the two buildings. How they got it in there, have no idea. That we had to get, and the only reason why they found it is because somebody broke an electric line when they were digging, and so rather than just splice it, they decided to dig the whole thing up, and they're digging in a tank. No idea. They had no idea. That was full of oil too. That was a scary one. So yeah, they had to get.
Can you imagine what they're going to find?
Yeah, but I mean that's that's the vintage of that hospital is the same era as MCI Norfolk. Yeah. And we found a tank in no man's land that nobody had any idea. And the only giveaway was that somebody had moved a cabinet inside the industries building, and there were 2 oil lines in the wall. And that cabinet had been there probably for 30 years. Yeah. Nobody had any idea.
Yeah. A lot of history there.
Yep. So anyways.
Okay.
So that's that. Norwood Hospital, John?
Norwood Hospital, there is a movement out there right now around encouraging the state to take the property by eminent domain.
Oh.
Yep.
Yeah, I was shocked when I heard that. Yeah.
So what I'll do is I'll forward an email that I sent off to Representative Vaughn and Senator Roush that I sent out a couple weeks ago, encouraging them to support.
That's what they did with St. Elizabeth's.
Exactly.
And what happened with St. Elizabeth's?
Still open.
I thought Mass General.
No, it's no longer St. Elizabeth's, but
yeah.
It's still operating as a hospital.
So you could take over eminent domain and then it still operates as a hospital?
Yeah,
it's beautiful. It's gorgeous. It's done. Has a parking garage and everything.
I saw it for the first time last week.
But my understanding is that it's not built out inside. It's only a weather type building. Yeah.
But that's current. What's happening today?
It's just a shame.
Yeah. I will forward folks the email I sent off to them.
Okay.
And I encourage folks to do the same.
Okay.
Now, mind you, I've not gotten a response back, but they have received it.
Great. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. And I'd also encourage folks to, have folks within the network send out a similar note.
Last item, set the agenda. Everything looks good for me, except for May.
Yeah, and I'm away in June, so we can reschedule as needed.
Yeah, let's
as we get a little closer.
Yeah, figure out March, April. Yeah.
Okay. So the next meeting I've got on the calendar for February 24th.
Yeah.
Any other anticipated new business?
Are you running again?
I'll be pulling papers.
Oh, it was only for a year?
It was only 1 year
Yeah,
term.
he was filling an unexpired term.
So,
Fun.
we, they're available in about a week.
February 9th.
Yeah.
And then I think you have to return them
I think he's got 3 weeks or 2 weeks.
March 12th.
3 weeks.
Don't quote me on the date though.
I thought
Carol will let you know.
I think 3 weeks at least. So, okay.
Cool. I'll stand in front of the library for a couple hours.
Keep track of your expenses. I was scrambling the last minute with mine. I wasn't even thinking about what I printed out, you know?
Yeah, I got mine submitted on December 12th to keep Carol happy. I wouldn't want to piss Carol Green off.
I've never spent a penny. I refuse to get signs printed up for various reasons, but I have actually never really run against it. It's always been unopposed.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else?
No.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
I second that.
All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye.